Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Does the U.S. government have any reverse, okay, we already answered that question about retrieval programs. Do any U.S. contractors have the same?
I would prefer to address that in a closed session, ma'am.
Okay. In your book, you mentioned government employees who've been injured by UAPs placed on leave and receiving government compensation for their injuries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How can the government deny we have recovered craft if they're paying people because they've been injured by recovered craft?
Ma'am, that's a great question. That's why I think we're here again, because I've seen the documentation by the U.S. government for several of these individuals who have sustained injuries as a result of a UAP incident.
I feel like I've waited my entire life for stuff like this to get exposed. And now that the time is here, it's really anticlimactic. It's like I've had a lot of people reaching out to me like, hey, why aren't you covering the UFO hearings? But part of me feels like most people don't even care. Don't get me wrong, I care. If I could, I would talk about nothing but this for a very long time. This is the most interesting thing going on right now, if you ask me. But I don't feel like other people feel the same way I do. In fact, when you go talk to people, they're not really worried about this. It's like, hey, it's been confirmed that the US, Russia, China, the world superpowers are all part of this alien arms race, and we're all trying to reverse engineer UFO technology to use as weapons. It's all getting exposed right here in front of Congress, and people are like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Are you watching the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight later? Like, really, that's what's going on. Literally, a couple of days ago, they confirm everything we've been suspecting about aliens. And it's not like this is happening on a random radio show or on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. No, this is happening in our government, right? You can watch these hearings live, and most Americans are like, oh, well, who cares? Anyway, Mike Tyson's fighting Jake Paul. Hey, did you hear about the new Krabby Patty meal at Wendy's? It's like people don't care, man. And it's so wild to me, because this is everything that we've been wanting to know for years, and now that they're kind of laying it out here for us, no one cares. So I guess maybe, we were wrong when we thought that people would panic if it was confirmed that aliens are real. Listen, I'll give them this. They are doing a very good job of rolling this information out without people freaking out about it. Now, I don't know if people aren't freaking out, maybe because they just don't know about the information that's being revealed, or maybe they're just worried about other things and they don't really care. But you would think that the information that's coming out, you would think that it would cause more of a splash. In fact, the reason why the government has been so secretive about a lot of this information from the get-go is because they didn't know how the general public would react. Would they throw all rhyme and reasoning to the wind? Would they get rid of religion and just start living crazily? Would they panic? I think that the people running this world were scared about how people would react to this news, but they're doing a good job of rolling it out in a way to where people don't really react or care at all. In fact, for a long time, they'll talk about UFOs, and then they'll always bring up that, oh, maybe this is just technology from Russia or China. Maybe this is man-made. Well, during the hearings, they, as you heard at the beginning of this video, they put it out there that we got government employees who have been injured by UFOs. And while our government tells us that UFOs and aliens aren't real, our government is using our taxpayer dollars to pay people who have been injured by these crafts or by these creatures. And speaking of creatures, like I was saying, for a long time they'll use the excuse of, oh, maybe this is a drone from Russia or something, some unknown technology from China. Well, they confirmed that, yeah, the U.S. has biologics. We've recovered bodies that are unhuman, right? And that we've been in communication with these aliens or whatever you want to call them as well. Let's go ahead and roll another clip from the hearing, and then I'll be right back with more.
In the discussions, it's simply about material, or is there discussion about it was previously testified that there was biologics that were collected. Are you aware of any of that?
I am, sir, aware of the reporting that biologics have been recovered. Again, my focus was more nuts and bolts, looking at the physical aspects of these phenomenon, how they interacted around military equities and nuclear equities. So I'm certainly not a medical expert. I would not be able to probably provide you a whole lot of value in that simply because I don't have the expertise.
But was anything described as that we have possession of bodies?
Yes, yes.
We have is it multiple types of creatures, or?
Sir, I couldn't answer that. I can tell you anecdotally that it was discussed quite a bit when I was at the Pentagon. The problem is the supposed collection of these biological samples occurred before my time, in fact, before I was even born.
And was this part of the Lockheed Martin discussion, or was this the biologics is a completely separate?
Separate yet related.
Okay. Has anyone made contact?
Sir, I'm sorry, could you specify?
Has there been any, to your knowledge, any communication with a non-human life form?
So the term communication is a bit of a trick word because there's verbal communication like we're having now. The problem is you also have nonverbal communication. And so I would say definitively yes, but from a nonverbal meaning, when a Russian reconnaissance aircraft comes into U.S. airspace, we scramble 2 F-22s, and we are certainly communicating intent and capability. I think the same goes with this. We have these things that are being observed over controlled U.S. airspace, and they're not really doing a good job hiding themselves. They're making it pretty obvious they have the ability to even interfere with our nuclear equities and our nuclear readiness.
So from his explanation of things, we have been in communication with these aliens, but maybe not necessarily verbal communication. Like, he's mainly talking about communication through actions. You know what I mean? Like, you could run into someone on the street. You guys don't have to exchange words to communicate. When you see someone acting erratically or irrationally, going crazy in the street, you avoid them. You might not say a single word to them. They might not say a single word to you, but through their actions and behavior, they communicated with you, and you communicated with them by avoiding them, right? So he's explaining that, yeah, we're kind of in communication with these things, but maybe not in the traditional sense of the manner. Now, in my opinion, I think that we're well beyond communicating with these aliens through our behavioral patterns or through body language or through our actions. I think we're communicating with these things on a whole different level. But you have to remember that these whistleblowers that are coming out, just because they have certain information doesn't mean they have all the information. And that's one thing I appreciate about the guy that we heard speak in these videos, is he doesn't pretend to know it all. Now, he could be, a plant. He could be someone the government is using to purposely put this information out there. That doesn't blow over my head either. But what I'm saying is, you would think that if he was being more so dishonest, that he would try to pretend like he was a know-it-all in certain spaces, but he doesn't. He gives the information that he had access to, and he tells you straight up, listen, if it has to do with this or if it has to do with that, I don't know. I didn't have access to that information, and even if I did, I'm not qualified to speak on it because I don't really know about these things. So I appreciate that. Some people have viewed it like, oh, this guy's keeping secrets still. This guy's beating around the bush. He wants to confirm some things and not others. I view it as this guy is speaking on what he knows, and he's not trying to dive too deeply into what he doesn't know. Sure, there may be things he's heard. There may be little pieces of information that he's heard about or knows that he can't confirm. This dude's dealing with what he knows, what he can really speak on. And I appreciate that. But as I said earlier, I mean, it doesn't look like many people actually appreciate it because most people don't seem to care. And that will never not be crazy to me. I know I repeat myself. Every time I talk about UFOs, I talk about this, but it blows my mind every time that we're having these hearings and it's not the number one thing that everyone's talking about. You know, everyone's talking about a boxing match between a 60-year-old man and a 27-year-old on Netflix. That's what America is focused on, as we have, you know, congressional hearings about aliens being real, living in our oceans, you know, spying on our military facilities, you know, government employees getting hurt by aliens and UFOs, us recovering craft. It's all so crazy. But we're living in a day and age where a lot of this information is coming out, and I'm going to warn you all right now that this information isn't coming out right now for no reason. You could believe the information that is provided, or you can be skeptic. You could be skeptical. You could not believe it. Either way, this isn't happening for no reason. I can guarantee you that. What the reason is, I don't know. But one thing that I have pointed out in the past is even during the Cold War, when we get into these conflicts and we get really close to like war with Russia, we often bring out UFO talk. And we do this to scare Russia that we may have certain technology or certain weaponry that they don't know about. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case here, but I don't got time to talk about it in this video. But if you go back and you do some research about UFOs and aliens during the Cold War, we were doing like psychological warfare on the Russians, talking about UFOs and stuff like that to scare them, to discourage them from attacking America, because we wanted them to believe that we had access to these alien weapons and stuff like that. I know it sounds outlandish, but that was literally going on during the Cold War. And I'm wondering if we're seeing something like that happening now because, you know, we're on the verge of war with Russia and this, you know, major conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But maybe it has nothing to do with that. We'll just have to wait and see. For now, let me know your thoughts down below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.